want to get into this because a lot of people, they get into coin collecting and also, getting some gold because they want to have a good hedge against inflation. Obviously, we're having the worst inflation right now that we've had since I was 1 year old.
Sure.
And it's like, and obviously you must know a lot about inflation because a lot of the coins you probably carry were previous currencies that just went out of circulation because they got inflated.
Yep.
So I've tried to explain how inflation is a hidden tax, and how printing more money and just giving people more money is actually the worst cure for inflation.
Yep.
But can you explain that so people can understand it?
Well, I can try. A lot of these things are perceptions of what people believe in and things like that. But I can tell you, throughout history, gold, silver, and other precious metals have always been thought as a hedge against inflation. In other words, people flock to it when they see the instability in a market like our stock market, and they want to put their money in, do hard assets. So that's where bullion comes around to that end, and people could do it. I got a kick the other day on KSL radio when the two hosts there were making fun of people that collected gold, and they got a guy that was in there willing to sell gold stock but not actually take physical possession. So when you take physical possession of something, you don't have to trust anybody, you don't have to have somebody watch it for you. You take physical possession, it's yours, you can do anything you want with it at a time. You can carry it with you, so you can carry concentrated wealth in various things, in silver and things like that. Well, there's a whole bunch of people out there that have been thinking this for years, and they still do. They don't think that the dollar bill is really backed by the right way. Our Federal Reserve is a bank into itself. It's not the Bank of the United States. They're a bank. We borrow money from the Federal Reserve. That's who we owe the national debt to. They put it out in bonds and so forth like that, and we're constantly just paying the interest right now. We can't even pay anything on the principal. So you can see this has got a finite thing where sooner or later it will tip that we won't be able to even pay the interest, because you just can't print more money to get you out of this existence. You can't print it. You have to have and control it, and that's what the Fed is trying to do. They try to control money by releasing it in times when we need that to stimulate business growth by people spending, and then tighten it down when we're trying to take control of things. Or in our case that you've been recently listening to, increasing interest rates for people that are borrowing, because money was too easy to get, and you could buy into things for a short amount of money, and then you could make your money go for it like that. But it all comes down to a perception down the road that you won't be able to pay, and that's what the banking crisis that we had. Everybody was buying way out of their means of trying to pay it back, and they would defer down the line, thinking that things would change, or somehow they could turn things around with so much profit they could pay off the debts that they've already brought them into debt. So obviously, when I talk about gold and silver, we're trying to get people to invest in it. I usually never call myself an expert. I always say I specialize in things. Unfortunately, in my life, I run into experts, and when I've learned something what their field of expertise in, I found out that they didn't know as much as they persist or pretend that they know. They are pretending, they're faking it till they make it. Very few people I'd ever call real experts. So I specialize in this thing, and I think I have a grasp on it. And every time I think I got this figured out, so I get slammed with just the opposite. I get taught a lesson. So as much as my intellect will try to figure things out, I really don't know, and I can't predict. I can maybe see trends coming. I can see perceptions trends that are happening, like in the media, when certain things around the world and conditions are going. I can tell what might happen if this happens, and I can see a market, I can look at a graph, I can see where there's patterns in that for maybe 3 days, but I can make a logical assumption. It's like somebody counting cards, with somebody's dealing blackjack with one card. You can count the aces, you can count the face cards, and you'll know that there'll be a tipping point where you can actually bet and the odds will be in your favor more, but you really can't predict the final outcome to any certainty. You can make a logical assumption and a guess, and people try to do that, but for the most part, people are buying gold and silver to have a safety net, to make them feel comfortable. You know, we often talk about storage of food. Well, some people also were encouraged to have a storage of emergency money. That if you've lost your job or if you had an injury, could you be able to pay your bills for 6 months or a year or even longer? You know, do you have insurance to cover this? Or do you have a way that you can go back to your income that you saved for hard times that might be coming?
Well, I struggle with the way you explain to a non-economist minded person, somebody who never took macroeconomics, how how inflation is a hidden tax.
It is.
So
Yeah.
so to say it's a hidden tax, how is it that tax is now cropping its head when they never thought it would? I heard Janet Yellen say, the Treasury Secretary, when inflation first started, oh, this is going to be really temporary, and I know it's not going to continue. And that was when inflation was like at 4%, and then we got it up to 9%. And so who do you believe? And then, but how is it? Do you wrap your head around the idea that it is
Well,
in fact it is?
She said exactly what she needed to say to try to calm fears, so there wouldn't be a run on the banks or the economy. She did her job. It might not be what she feels, or it might be what she actually believes. She said what she needed to say.
And I think you're totally
You know,
right, because
so-
that's going to be worse and exacerbated the more people believe it's happening, because
Yeah.
you have more dollars chasing fewer goods,
Yeah.
which causes
Right.
inflation. But then how do you convince the politicians that the proper solution isn't to put more dollars out there so people can afford more stuff? Because everybody wants their college education paid for, everybody wants their health care and their housing paid for. How do you get people to wrap their heads around?
I try to tell people to read between the lines. Look who's saying it. What is their political affiliation? What is their duty to do? Are they just reading a prompter? We're so manipulated by the media. You know, perceptions are put out in front of you to get people to change their mind. You know, and I could go into great detail there, but I would be political in myself, and I could probably get death threats. But if you just learn to trust yourself and quit thinking that government is there to bail you out. You know, best thing you can do is try to get out of debt, and then you don't feel that pressure on you. And like most people that are married, what's the number one thing that causes strife in a marriage? Money. So you eliminate that strife by getting out of debt, having a savings. If you can do that, that's the number one best thing. And then people need to learn how to save. Quit using that doggone credit card all the time, or the debit card. We got people now that don't carry any cash. And it's usually younger people. I go, what if you're out in the desert and you run into a place that doesn't take any card? Or your cell phone battery runs out. You can't recharge it. You know, what you're gonna use? So this guy at this gas station's not gonna fix your car unless you got $200 on you. What are you gonna do? I can send you the money. And you're right, you know. They don't even carry cash, so they don't understand cash. You can't eliminate cash. 17% of America doesn't have any connections to banking accounts, and that includes the homeless and other elderly.
17%.
Yeah, so if you eliminate the cash out there, you're very decisive and you're actually very prejudiced against elderly and homeless. So you can't do that. So you need to carry cash with you. If you want to get control of your finances, pay off your credit card every month. And only put on stuff that you have to on your credit card. With me, it's a simple business deduction.
Yeah.
You know, but if you want to control yourself, take your paycheck, put it in an envelope in cash. Start to budget your money. When it comes down to the end of the week, you go, I have $12 to get through this week. You're gonna eat a lot of ramen. You know?
That's good
Because
advice.
and you'll learn to balance your checkbook. But we're in a cash and pay later society. Running debt, everybody has this debt. And it's this giant monkey that presses down on you. So getting back to inflation and how it really works, you know, with me you need to be self-sufficient, you know, in everything you do. And don't count on somebody to bail you out. Don't think mom and dad's gonna do it. Don't think government's gonna do it. You just need to work on yourself.
Yeah.
And get your whole finances in order. That's, I think, the best thing for inflation, if you can just try to plan it, you know. But this perception thing is really an important part. So obviously we have a war in the Middle East right now. You know, if somebody released a technical nuclear weapon, that would make gold and silver just jump overnight. If Russia, you know, released an atomic bomb, again, we're all going to suffer in the world for it, but you want to see real panic? There isn't any bank that could survive that run. So what you're going to do? Are you just going to say nothing's out there? Well, a lot of people believe in what they call US 90% coins. These are dimes, quarters, and half dollars. They were minted 64 and earlier, and even though we don't trust our government, we can trust the US Mint for their weights and measurement. It has a certain amount of silver, it can be calculated out, it's easy, and it's already in the form of money, and it's in smaller money. So it could be used. If there was going to be a time when coins replace paper money, that would be the first thing. And you got to remember that we've gone off the gold standard back in 1933. We went off the silver standard basically in 1970, and we have our money being not backed up by anybody. Really, it's not backed up by nothing. If we obviously went into a silver being backed by silver backing up our paper money or gold, if we went on to a gold standard, we wouldn't have the type of inflation that we have now.
That's right.
It would really correct itself. Now, how is it going to work? We don't know how it's going to work because we've never been there. You know, I could only give you one instance when in World War II where there was a black market in France. You know, the number one thing that you could trade for any kind of goods, you go to somebody and says, you know, I'd really like to get a turkey for our family or a side of ham for Christmas. He says, I got some gold rings I can give you. Well, gold wasn't any good. They had plenty of gold rings, you know. And it says, well, what do you want? You got a pound of coffee? Number one.
Really?
Yeah.
Coffee?
Yeah.
Probably coffee, tobacco.
Yeah.
Bullets.
Tobacco. Number two. Cigarettes. But people don't smoke like that. Number three was candied liquors. And number four, you'll never guess. Pantyhose. Because when you keep mama happy, everybody's happy. You know. But obviously, you don't gotta rush out and buy coffee, you know, or tobacco.
Well, you
or
see what's happened with inflation. Everybody's chasing yield. They want to preserve their wealth. They want to see what's gonna preserve. And so you see things like bourbon whiskey going up in value.
Yeah.
You see land prices have gone crazy up in value, and the elites have been buying up land, including Bill Gates buying up tons.
Sure.
Now the largest private farmland owner in the United States.
Can't take it with you though.
No, you can't. But as far as like keeping your wealth preserved, like there's Bitcoin. Do you have any thoughts about that?
It's the preferred currency of criminals. We don't do Bitcoin down here. Look at the examples that's already been there where everybody's lost everything.
Well, it's not backed by anything except an expensive server farm.
It's also been hacked. And they say it's unhackable. I think it's been hacked 4 different times.
Really?
We don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I don't do that. I don't believe in other type of things that people have as substitute for currency. I think gold backs, for example, is a novelty. I know the people well. You know, it's a great idea. I just think it's a novelty thing because you have to still turn it into gold, and you got to go through all the other processes of trying to get some sort of thing that will exchange as money that you can actually buy something from the grocery store. So it's a lot of extra steps in there when you can just physically go out and buy a 10th ounce gold piece or 1 ounce gold piece. You can buy silver, 1 ounce silver rounds. You can buy American silver eagles. There's a myriad of different things. The neat thing, you can do it. Even nowadays, they have a self-directed IRA. You form a corporation, you still have to do papers every year on this corporation, but you can actually take physical possession. You keep it. When you sell it, you have to report it like it's a corporation, but you keep it. It's never somebody else's investment. You don't have to trust anybody. You keep it.
Wow.
Self-directed IRAs.
That's pretty cool.
So a lot of people do that. What we're trying to say is that, you know, when you have things correct in your life and you got a peace of mind, you're going to sleep a lot better. You can handle something of a run on this and that. You don't have to worry about somebody else keeping the word. You have a physical element that you can do, and that's what gold and silver are buying. People are speculating in it too. Of course, you can speculate it with stocks. It's not quite the same.
So inflation did decrease a little bit this last month. Do you think it's going to continue to decrease or get worse?
You know, I don't trust our government. I think they can switch the numbers make graphs. You know, you change the parameters of any graph and you can make it look like it's doing it, your own point. I have level these people that like to predict that gold's going to be 5,000 an ounce, silver's going to be 250 an ounce. And you'll find out that most of those people that try to predict the future, they make a high prediction and they make a low prediction. They're covered on both ways, so when it does happen, see, I told you so. That they don't remember the other things. The unusual thing about the market too, especially the stock market, when there's bad times, when something happens that's bad, in 2 days they completely forgot it. What do you mean? Well, the Dow went down 1,200 points. Oh yeah, that's right. And they just don't remember it. They have a very short memory on everything. You know, it's just that very time, and then you got the sensationalism by the media, the national media. It's this terrible thing that's happened. You know, I think as communication has gotten better, they think the world is getting worse. And I don't feel that way. I think we're far better off than we were. It's just communication's gotten better. That we think something's terrible. We're instantly informed if something happened in the remotest parts of the world. So people get depressed, that excitement, that fear that they get built up. I don't think they should be. They should get on with their life, do the things that's right, realize that family's the most important thing, that no other success can compensate for failure in the home, and concentrate on yourself and being a good citizen and a good person. And of course, the end of this goal is what we call the big picture. This life is all about serving your fellow man.
That's great. Well, Bob, thanks a lot for talking about this.
You bet.
I think a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen and what to do, and that's a great point. Focus on your family, focus on your community. Yeah, well, thanks for talking to me.
Oh, you're
Bob.
welcome.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.